Hello, everyone. In this session, we're going to go over some general information and responsibilities of the treasurer role. I am Steve Saldivar, Director of Finance with HFMA, and I am joined today by Perla Gallegos, our staff accountant. I'm sure you're pretty familiar with her. She takes care of most of our chapter operations. So Perla, say hello.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
Perfect. Thank you, Perla. So we're going to go ahead and start off with the corporate organization chart. So you can see here at the very top, we have our HFMA board, which is the very top layer of our governance. Underneath our board, we have the HFMA Membership Association, which is our 501c6 entity. And then right next to that, we have the Education Foundation, which is the 501c3 entity. And then we also have a for-profit entity, which is Learning Solutions Incorporated. Going down, we can see under the Membership Association, that's where you guys lie in the organization chart. We have our 64 chapters. In each chapter is also a 501c6 organization. There's only one chapter, as we can see to the right there, that operates an education foundation, which is also a 501c3. Okay, so what does that mean? So basically, with the chapters being 501c6 organizations, that means you guys are exempt from federal income tax under Section 501c of the Revenue Code. Chapters are not exempt from state sales tax. So that's the biggest impact on you guys. Chapters are considered a non-for-profit organization, but you guys would not be exempt from state sales tax or local sales tax as well. All right, so moving on, here is a very useful checklist kind of timing chart that Perla put together for us a few years ago. It basically lays out who's responsible for each task, how you handle each task, and then to the far right is the due dates. Looking at the due date column there, you'll notice most of this is pretty heavy in the August-September timeframe, which is basically the beginning of the new fiscal year, but most of this work is for the fiscal year that just ended. The two dates on here that are a little bit different is this first July 1st and then the September 15th. Everything else is pretty much due on August 1st. Going back up to the July 1st date, this is when we need you guys to have your QuickBooks finalized. All year-end adjustments or accruals, anything you need to book in QuickBooks needs to be finalized, completed by July 1st. Perla will be reaching out to make sure that's completed, because we need to make sure your QuickBooks is finalized and the instance in QuickBooks is closed before we can begin with all the other year-end items that we need to complete as well. So moving on to the next set of August 1st items, the first thing is the IRS 990 tax compliance survey. This is a survey that gets sent out to you guys, and it basically collects information. There's a few open-ended questions, like how many volunteers do you have? How many board members do you have? A lot of the questions are yes, no type questions. They're pretty much the same every year. It comes directly off of the Form 990 from the IRS, but we need you guys to complete that for-year chapter, and it helps us collect information from all 64 chapters, which then goes on to the group return that the association files on behalf of all 64 chapters. Okay, the next three items are basically policies that we need you guys to attest to that your chapter has them in practice and that you're acknowledging that the policy procedure exists. Formerly, there would have been a paper document that you would have downloaded, signed, and returned to us. This year, that's actually going to be handled through CVent. So you'll receive a CVent survey, basically. It'll include a PDF version of each of these forms. And then we'll need you to check a box that says, I certify that I've read and certify that these policies are in place. And then you'll provide your digital signature through CVent for these items. Up next, also due April 1st, is the annual financial review. This will also be handled through CVent this year. Again, in the past, it would have been paper form. You probably would have emailed it over to Perla with your supporting documents. But all of that will be handled in CVent. You'll sign digitally in CVent, and then we're asking that you upload your completed annual financial review along with all your supporting documentation in there as well. And just one note, all of these items here are covered in either the policy and documents video or in the annual financial rewview and 990 reporting video. So if you need additional information, additional steps and details on any of these tasks, please jump over to those videos, and there'll be a lot more detail and additional guidance there. And then Perla, do you want to go ahead and talk about the informational 990 Excel document?
Sure thing. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, so in regards to the 990, so yes, once the chapter confirms that the financial review has been complete, and again, kind of going back to finalizing close, all adjustments and accruals, we want to make sure that those are pretty much, done and up to date. We can move forward with preparing the 990. And so that is usually my responsibility. I'll go ahead and use the chapter's balance sheet and profit and loss statement and just kind of update the information with the current year and then prior year. And then there are additional columns that you'll see usually that indicate like variances, and then there's like a comment section, which last year really helped us a lot with just communicating on those variances. As you know, we prepare the return on an arrear basis. So this kind of helps us just kind of going back to what changes happened, kind of explaining again those variances, so that as we work to finalizing and consolidating, the financials, we pretty much know, where we stand individually and as a whole. And then this year, there will be additional line items with respect to the 990, where we would basically would like chapters to indicate and specify donations and scholarships. Usually these are recorded like under miscellaneous revenue or miscellaneous expenses, which is fine, but we would just like to know a little bit more about that in specific. So though, just keep that in mind that that would be something new this year. And so usually anything that's highlighted in bright yellow would be something that we would want you, the outgoing treasurer, to, pretty much complete. And even though it is the responsibility of the offboarding treasurer, usually the incoming and outgoing treasurer work together, so that it just kind of gives the incoming treasurer more of an idea what to expect when it's their year of reporting and working on the 990. And so, we just, any questions with regards to that, please feel free to contact me directly. I will definitely be working closely with the chapter on this. And so, yeah, Steve, if you want to go ahead and talk about the chapter budget.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that, Perla. And yeah, guys, like we mentioned, there's a whole other video on the 990 information. Feel free to check that out. And as Perla mentioned, there will be a new section this year. We're required to submit our list on the 990, scholarship information, kind of like Perla said. So we need to know the exact scholarship expense and all of that fun stuff. So look for that section on the 990 Excel sheet. Perla usually gets that out around the beginning of September. And then it'll be due back to us about the 15th. So you have about two weeks or so to get that back. And then that helps us greatly, along with the IRS 990 tax compliance survey, to complete the group 990 return for all 64 chapters. So thank you so much, Perla, for that. The next thing is the chapter budget. So each year, it's the treasurer's responsibility to work with, either your board, yourself, however your chapter handles it, to build the chapter budget for the coming fiscal year. If you've been the treasurer for 2, 3, 4, 5 years now, you may remember that this due date was actually June 1st in the past. We've received some feedback that the June 1st date was a little tight, being able to get with the board and get it approved and all of that before June 1st. So we've decided to move this to August 1st with the rest of the due dates. We still recommend, and it's still a good idea, to have at least a preliminary budget in place by June 1st, so you're not operating blindly the first 2 months of the fiscal year. But the requirement and due date to have the budget entered in QuickBooks is going to be August 1st. Okay, there's nothing due to national. We can look in QuickBooks ourselves and see that it's there. So please just go ahead and get that entered. So then it's in your financial statements. When you run your P&L, you can see your actuals versus budget, and any variances. So you guys can address that throughout the fiscal year as well. The next one is similar to the other forms. It's the conflict of interest form. The difference here is that this one is for all board members serving this fiscal year. The other forms were for the president and treasurer that would be offboarding. So the conflict of interest is required each year. It's stated in our 990 that each board member basically reaffirms that there's no conflict of interest. They, they adhere to this policy as a board member, again, for each year. That as well will be administered through the CVent portal. So each board member will receive a CVent survey with the conflict of interest policy. They'll go ahead and sign digitally, and that'll be due back by June 1st as well. And then down at the bottom, this is one of the other non-August 1st dates. This one's actually completely separate from everything above. Everything above is more so related to year-end close or starting the new fiscal year as a chapter leader. Down at the bottom, this due date is actually mid-year, January 31st, and this is for the 1099 NEC. This is for non-employee compensation if your chapter uses independent contractors. You may be familiar with the 1099 miscellaneous box 7. In 2020, 1099 miscellaneous box 7 actually became 1099 NEC for non-employee compensation. Again, there's a whole nother video for that. You can feel free to go ahead and watch that video. And then there's also in the Chapter Resource Center, a whole presentation on the 1099 NEC. And we'll actually go over the Chapter Resource Center in just a moment, so you know how to get there, just in case you haven't visited that yet. Perla, anything else on dates or tasks or anything we want to be sure everyone knows? Okay. Moving on is accessing the Chapter Resource Center. We'll go here live in just a moment, but basically if you go to hfma.org, you'll click on Tools, go to the Chapter Resource Center, Chapter Resources, and then within that, you'll see Finance Operations, and then you'll be able to find most of the things that we talked about in this presentation here. So let's actually go ahead and take a look. So when you come to hfma.org, you'll want to go ahead and sign in. I'm actually already signed in. So if you click on Tools and then Chapter Resource Center, it's going to bring you to this page here. So in this section, you'll see Chapter Resources. And then because we're in the treasurer role, we'll want to take a look at Finance Operations. And then this might look a little familiar to you. So this is the checklist that we just went over. You can, grab this from here if you need to refer to it for any dates or anything. This one is the one from last year, so you'll notice the dates are a little bit different. There were extension dates due to COVID. In the coming weeks, this entire page will be updated with all new information. So you'll find the new checklist. You'll find copies of the forms here. As mentioned, the forms were downloaded and signed manually in the past and scanned back to us. You'll find a copy of the policies here, but there won't be any signature lines on them. So if you want to reference them, you can feel free to grab them from here. And then there's also additional resources here. We have our full financial tax, insurance, and management guide. There's just guidance in there. If you have questions, about prepaids or anything of that nature, you can take a look there. If not, you could always reach out to us at accounting@hfma.org. Here's the 1099 presentation we mentioned. If you need a certificate of insurance, all these things are addressed in one of the training videos here for LTC. But this is basically where you would go. If you can't find it here, definitely reach out to us, either to Perla or at accounting@hfma.org, and we can certainly assist you. But this is usually your one-stop shop to find whatever you need. And with that, we thank you for attending the session. If you have any additional questions, concerns, as always, accounting@hfma.org, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you so much.